The day my parents told me they were leaving everything to my brother, I thought the worst part was over. I was wrong. A week later, Mom sent me a text that shattered what was left of our relationship. It's over between us. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name's Eliora, but everyone calls me Ellie. I'm 29, live in Portland, and have been on my own since I was 19. I've worked my way up in a small design firm, rented my own place, and never asked my parents for a dime. My younger brother, Ryan, is 25, loud, charming, and somehow always manages to land on his feet no matter how many times he screws up. Growing up, it was clear he could do no wrong. My parents, Marla and Dennis Grant, are the kind of people who care deeply about appearances. Big house, perfect lawn, the kind of smiles that hide tension. When Mom invited me over for dinner last Sunday, I figured it was another family night. I even brought a bottle of wine. Dinner started out normal enough, Mom fussing over the roast, Dad bragging about Ryan's new business idea, and Ryan laughing too loud at his own jokes. I sat there, smiling politely, trying not to notice the way Mom looked at him like he hung the moon. Then Dad cleared his throat and said, "Your mother and I have been making some decisions about the future." Something in his tone made me put my fork down. He went on about their will, the family home, the investments, the legacy. I didn't think much of it until he said, "We've decided to leave the estate to Ryan. He'll carry the family name forward." For a second, I thought I misheard him. My mom smiled at me like it was a perfectly reasonable thing to say. Ryan looked down at his plate, pretending to be humble, but his smirk gave him away. I asked quietly, "All of it?" To him. Dad nodded like it was already settled. "You're independent, Elle. You don't need it." Ryan, on the other hand, needs some direction. It felt like the air had been punched out of my chest. I wanted to shout, to ask if all my years of effort meant nothing, but the words stuck in my throat. I forced a smile and said, "Well, that's nice. I'm happy for him." Mom reached across the table and patted my hand, as if I were a child who didn't understand adult matters. I couldn't stay another minute. I left before dessert, blaming work in the morning. Driving home, I couldn't stop shaking. I pulled over halfway there, crying so hard my hands slipped on the steering wheel. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, realizing something painful. I wasn't part of their family anymore. I was just the daughter who stopped fitting into their picture perfectly. 2 days passed before I heard from my mother again. I was sitting at my kitchen table, half dressed for work, when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, expecting maybe an apology or an attempt to smooth things over. Instead, it was just one short message from Mom. "It's over between us." I stared at it for a long time, not sure what it even meant. Over? Between us? She was my mother, not an ex. My chest tightened as I typed. "What are you talking about?" No reply. I called her. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. By the fourth call, it wasn't even ringing anymore. She had blocked me. I sat there frozen, the silence in my apartment pressing in on me. I wanted to believe it was a mistake, that she'd meant something else, but deep down I knew it wasn't. It felt deliberate, like the door to our relationship had been slammed shut and locked from the other side. At work that day, I couldn't focus. My designs blurred on the screen, my hands trembling when I tried to type. Around lunch, I stepped outside just to breathe. That's when my brother called. His voice was casual, too casual. "You shouldn't keep bothering Mom," he said. "She doesn't want drama right now." I felt my stomach twist. Drama? "Ryan, she just told me it's over between us. Do you have any idea what that means?" He gave a fake sigh. "Ellie, you left dinner angry. You made your choice. Mom doesn't want to deal with more guilt trips. Let her calm down, okay?" I could hear the smugness under his calm tone, the satisfaction he couldn't quite hide. It made my skin crawl. He sounded like someone who'd already won something. When I got home that night, I sat on the couch and went through every message Mom and I had ever shared. Birthday texts, photos of us cooking together, small jokes about Dad's stubbornness. All of it felt suddenly foreign, like they belonged to someone else's family. Something wasn't right. My mom could be cold, but not cruel. Blocking me, cutting me off entirely. It didn't sound like her. I replayed Ryan's voice in my head, the way he said, "You made your choice." That line echoed, sharp and deliberate. He wanted me to feel guilty, maybe even responsible. I started thinking back to the dinner. The way he kept glancing at our parents, almost like he was guiding the conversation. How he said nothing when they told me about the will, just watched me. The thought crept in slowly, like a cold draft. What if Ryan had planned all of this? What if he wanted me gone completely, not just from the inheritance, but from them? That night, I didn't cry. I just sat there in the dark, my phone silent beside me. The hurt was still there, but underneath it, something new was starting to form, a quiet, steady anger. I wasn't going to beg them to keep me anymore. If Ryan thought he'd erased me, he was wrong. I drove to my parents' house early on a Sunday morning without calling first. The sky was still pale, the streets quiet. I didn't even know what I was expecting. Maybe a chance to talk, maybe just to see if Mom would answer the door. As I turned into the driveway, I froze. Ryan's truck was already there. I parked down the street and walked the rest of the way. The windows of the house were open, and I could hear faint voices from inside. My mother's tone was sharp, anxious. Ryan's was low and smooth, the same voice he used when he was trying to sound reasonable. I moved closer to the porch, heart pounding. Through the screen door, I caught his words clearly. Mom, you know how she gets. Ellie always plays the victim. She doesn't care about this family. She just wants your money. You saw how she stormed out. It's not safe letting her back in when she's angry. Mom didn't interrupt. She just sighed, the sound heavy and tired. Ryan kept going, piling it on. She's never been happy for me, Mom. She resents everything I have. You don't owe her anything. You're doing the right thing keeping your distance. I felt my stomach twist as I listened. My own brother was poisoning her against me, calmly, confidently, like he'd rehearsed it. The worst part was hearing how my mother didn't argue back. She let him speak as if every lie were true. My hands were shaking, but I pulled out my phone and hit record. I didn't know what I'd do with it, only that I needed proof of what he was doing. His voice came through steady and controlled, a professional liar convincing his audience. Then I heard her say, almost whispering, I just don't want any more conflict. She always makes me feel guilty. That sentence hit me harder than anything else. I'd never wanted her money or their house. I just wanted her to believe me, to see me. But Ryan had rewritten me in her mind, turned me into some greedy stranger. I backed away from the porch before they could see me. My legs felt weak, but my mind was strangely clear. For the first time, everything made sense. The cold message, the silence, the sudden wall between us. It was all him. When I reached my car, I sat there gripping the steering wheel, breathing hard. A few days ago, I would have been crying. Now, I just stared straight ahead. The hurt was still deep, but something inside me shifted. The sadness started to cool, hardening into something sharp and deliberate. He wanted me out of their lives. Fine. But he'd just shown me exactly how he worked, how easily he twisted truth into poison. And if he thought I'd stay quiet, he didn't know me at all. I waited a week before making my next move. Instead of going to the house again, I drove to my father's office on a quiet Thursday afternoon. He ran a small construction company in town, and I knew his routine. Coffee at 1, paperwork until 5. I parked a few blocks away and walked the rest of the distance, rehearsing every word in my head. When I stepped into his office, he looked surprised. Ellie, everything okay? He asked, his voice cautious but not unkind. He was the calmer one between my parents, but always too quick to follow my mother's lead. I just wanted to talk, I said, smiling as if it were a casual visit. He motioned for me to sit, and for a few minutes we talked about work and traffic, like nothing had happened. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. I need you to listen to something, I said quietly. He frowned but nodded. I played a small part of the recording, just enough for him to hear Ryan's voice and my mother's silence. The sound filled the room, sharp and undeniable. When it ended, he leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. Dad, I'm not trying to start a fight, I said carefully, but I need you to know what's going on. He's turning her against me. I didn't do anything wrong. He didn't answer right away. His eyes drifted to the window, avoiding mine. Finally, he sighed. Your brother has been under a lot of pressure lately. Maybe he just said too much. I could hear the hesitation in his tone, the way he wanted to believe both sides. I didn't push harder. I only nodded, letting the silence linger. I know you'll figure out the truth, I said, standing up. I just wanted you to hear it from. As I left, I noticed the small change in his expression, a trace of doubt, maybe even guilt. That was enough for now. Over the next few days, I kept things quiet. I visited him again, always during office hours, always calm and polite. I'd bring him coffee, talk about business, then mention small details. Ryan's spending habits, his projects, that never went anywhere, the way Mom seemed tired lately. I didn't accuse. I simply let the truth sit there, piece by piece, until it started to take shape in his mind. I avoided my mother completely. She was too wrapped up in Ryan's lies to see past them. Instead, I watched from the distance, learning where each of them stood. Ryan's weakness was pride. Mom's was fear. Dad's was his need for peace. Every evening, I wrote down what I'd noticed, times, conversations, reactions. It wasn't about catching them off guard anymore. It was about control, something they'd taken from me long ago. The anger I once felt had cooled into precision. I didn't shout, didn't cry, didn't reach out again. I was patient now. They thought they'd erased me, but I was already rewriting the ending. It happened by accident. I wasn't even looking for new information about Ryan. I thought I already knew the shape of his lies. But one afternoon, while meeting an old friend for lunch, the truth found me instead. Her name was Tara, a hostess at a small restaurant near my parents' neighborhood. We'd gone to high school together, and she still worked there part-time. As we talked, she mentioned seeing Ryan there often a few years back. The way she said it caught my attention. He used to come in late, she said, lowering her voice. Always met with some older guy and your mom. They sat in the corner booth, tried to act casual, but everyone noticed. I blinked. My mom. Are you sure? Tara nodded. Positive. She'd wear sunglasses inside, like she was hiding. It stopped after Ryan showed up one night alone, made a scene with the man she'd been seeing. I remember thinking, whatever that was, it ended ugly. Something cold ran through me. You mean she was having an affair? Tara hesitated, then gave a slow nod. Yeah. The guy was married. She never came back after that night. When I left the restaurant, my head was spinning. Pieces started falling into place. My mother's nervous energy, Ryan's confidence, the way he always seemed to get exactly what he wanted. He wasn't just manipulating them, he was holding something over her. At home, I sat on my couch replaying every memory, every tone of voice between them. Ryan's arrogance wasn't just spoiled entitlement, it was power. He'd found out about the affair and used it. I imagined him threatening her, pretending to protect the family name in exchange for her loyalty. I opened my phone and scrolled through her message again. It's over between us. Those words had sounded so final, so heartless. But now they felt like something else, fear. It wasn't me she was cutting off because she wanted to. She'd been forced to. Ryan must have told her that keeping me around was dangerous, that I'd talk, that I couldn't be trusted. She'd chosen silence to protect herself. My chest tightened, not from sadness this time, but from the realization of how deep his control ran. It was all a chain, his secret over her, her loyalty to him, their distance from me. He'd built it perfectly. But now, for the first time, I had something he didn't know I knew. I looked at the recording on my phone, the sound of his voice feeding her lies, and felt a strange calm wash over me. I understood my mother's text now, but understanding didn't mean forgiveness. Ryan thought his secret made him untouchable. What he didn't realize was that secrets don't stay buried forever. And the one he used to build his throne was about to become the reason it collapsed. I decided to see her alone. No warning, no text, no call. Just showed up on a quiet afternoon when I knew Ryan would be gone. The house looked the same as always. Neat lawn, trimmed hedges, curtains pulled too tight. I rang the bell once and waited. When the door opened, my mother froze. Ellie, she whispered, her voice thin, almost frightened. Can we talk? I asked. She hesitated, then stepped aside. Inside, everything smelled of lemon polish and tension. She led me to the kitchen, her hands trembling slightly as she poured water into a glass. We stood across from each other, the air heavy. I know, I said finally. She blinked. Know what? I looked straight at her. About the man, the one from the restaurant, and about Ryan. He's been using it against you. Her face drained of color. The glass slipped from her hand and hit the counter with a sharp sound. Who told you that? She whispered. It doesn't matter, I said quietly. I know he caught you, and I know that's why you cut me off. He made you choose, and you chose him. She pressed a shaking hand to her mouth, her eyes wide with panic. Ellie, please. He's been blackmailing you, I continued, not raising my voice. You let him destroy every bit of trust we had because you were scared of being found out. Tears spilled down her cheeks, her voice breaking as she tried to speak. It wasn't like that. I thought I was protecting us. You don't understand, if your father ever. I understand perfectly, I interrupted. You chose fear over family. She flinched at my words as if they'd hit her. For a long moment, she just stood there, crying softly, the sound small and desperate. Then she whispered, Please, Ellie, don't tell anyone. I can fix this. I'll talk to Ryan, I'll make things right. Just don't say anything. I looked at her and saw not the mother who used to braid my hair or bake cookies on Sundays, but a woman cornered by her own lies. You can't fix what you refuse to face, I said. My tone was calm, steady, so unlike hers. Ellie, please, she said again, stepping closer, reaching out. I took a step back. For years, I'd been the one reaching, trying to earn her affection, trying to be enough. Now the distance between us finally felt right. She needed something from me she couldn't have anymore. I turned toward the door. You don't have to worry about me telling Dad, I said softly. But you should start worrying about the person who's been telling him lies. Her sob followed me down the hall, echoing off the walls. I didn't look back. For the first time, I wasn't the powerless one. As I stepped outside, the cold air hit my face, and I realized the balance had shifted. Ryan had controlled her with fear, but now, she knew I wasn't afraid of either of them. After that day with my mother, I knew there was no turning back. I had touched the truth, but it wasn't enough. Ryan still held the real power, money, influence, their trust. If I wanted to end this, I needed something undeniable. So, I started digging. I began with my father's company. I still had a few contacts there from when I helped design their old office years ago. Late at night, I sent careful messages, asking for public records, shipment reports, small details that wouldn't raise suspicion. Most people didn't question me. They assumed I was helping my father with paperwork. In a way, I was. It didn't take long before small inconsistencies appeared. Payments missing matching invoices. Transfers labeled as consulting fees, going to accounts under unfamiliar names. When I checked the routing numbers, every one of them led back to Ryan. He'd been siphoning money for months, maybe years, hiding it in smaller amounts just under the threshold that would trigger review. The discovery left me both furious and strangely calm. This was the key. My brother hadn't just lied to our family, he'd stolen from me. I spent the next few weeks collecting everything: bank statements, transaction logs, even internal emails showing Ryan approving payments without oversight. I stored copies on an external drive and hid it in a safe deposit box downtown. I wasn't reckless anymore. Every step was deliberate, quiet, methodical. Still, I needed guidance. I reached out to an attorney who handled corporate disputes, a woman named Claire Morton. We met in a small office above a coffee shop, the kind of place that smelled like old paper and roasted beans. I told her only the parts that mattered: embezzlement, fraud, misuse of company assets. No family drama. She didn't need to know that part. She reviewed the files, her brow tightening. "If what you're saying checks out," she said, "your brother's looking at serious charges. Are you sure you want to go through with this?" "I'm sure," I said. "I'm not trying to ruin him. I'm trying to stop him." She nodded slowly, understanding the weight behind my words. From there, everything moved in quiet, careful motion. Documents notarized, statements prepared, timelines aligned. She told me to stay silent until we had everything locked in place. I agreed. Each night, I went home and sat in the dim light of my apartment, reviewing files like a ritual. I didn't tell my father, didn't reach out to my mother. They were still living inside Ryan's story. I was building the ending. The tension grew heavier with every passing day. The closer I got, the more I could feel the walls closing around him and around me. I wasn't acting out of spite anymore. This was about balance, about making truth louder than lies. I didn't celebrate, didn't smile. I just waited. I knew there would be one perfect moment to pull everything into the light, and when it came, there would be no undoing it. My father called one evening and asked if I would come over for dinner. His voice was calm, almost hopeful. He said the family needed a chance to make things right. I agreed without hesitation. The timing couldn't have been better. Everything was ready. Every file, every recording, every message saved neatly in a single folder inside my bag. When I arrived, the table was set like nothing had ever gone wrong. Candles, wine glasses, even my mother's favorite china. Ryan was already seated at the end of the table, smirking when he saw me. My parents looked tense, but forced their smiles anyway. Dinner started in awkward silence. My father tried small talk, asking about work, while my mother kept her eyes down. Ryan broke the quiet first. "Glad you finally decided to show up," he said with a lazy grin. "Maybe we can all stop pretending you're the victim." I didn't respond. Instead, I reached into my bag and placed a thin envelope in the center of the table. "I'm not here to pretend," I said. Dad frowned. "What's this?" "Everything," I answered softly. Inside were printed emails, copies of bank transfers, and a USB drive containing the recordings and a few text screenshots. I didn't explain. I just slid the envelope toward him and leaned back, letting the truth unfold in its own time. Dad opened the first page, his expression shifting as he read. His eyes darted from the papers to Ryan, confusion giving way to disbelief. "Ryan," he said slowly, "what is this?" Ryan's smirk faltered. "Whatever she's showing you, it's fake. She's trying to ruin me because she's jealous." I looked at him calmly. "Check the account numbers." He snatched the papers from my father's hands, scanning them too quickly, his voice rising. "You went through my business records? You had no right. Your business." I said quietly, "You mean the one Dad built? The one you've been stealing from?" My mother's hand trembled as she reached for another sheet. Her eyes caught the familiar text messages printed in black and white. She gasped, dropping the paper as though it burned. Ryan turned on her instantly. "You said you deleted those." "Ryan!" Dad barked, standing now, voice shaking with fury. "How could you do this to us?" Ryan pushed back his chair, knocking it over. "You believe her over me? She's manipulating you. She's been against us from the start." Mom began to cry, the sound breaking the tension like glass shattering. "Stop, please," she sobbed, burying her face in her hands. I stood up, my voice steady amid the chaos. "You gave him everything," I said, looking directly at my father. Then I turned to my mother. "Now watch him destroy it." Ryan shouted something behind me as I walked toward the door, but I didn't turn back. The voices collided behind me, anger, panic, betrayal, but they no longer belonged to me. The night air outside was cold, silent, almost peaceful. I kept walking, leaving the noise, the lies, and the family I'd finally stopped trying to fix. The storm broke faster than I expected. By the next morning, the news was already spreading through my father's company. Employees whispered about missing funds, emergency meetings, lawyers being called. Ryan tried to spin the story, blaming accounting errors, but the evidence was too clear. My father froze all his access within a day. His name disappeared from the company website by the end of the week. I didn't go near the house, but I heard from a former employee that my father looked older overnight, his voice sharper, movements slower. The truth had done what years of denial never could. He finally saw Ryan for who he really was. My mother didn't speak to me. She couldn't. The shame was too heavy. But a few days later, I learned she'd hired her own lawyer. When my father discovered her affair was real, it broke something permanent between them. Divorce papers were filed quietly, almost without ceremony. The perfect family they had built, the house, the image, the pride, it all began to crumble. Accounts were frozen, assets split, their once spotless reputation stained by lawsuits and gossip. The life they had guarded so tightly had turned into a battlefield of signatures and silence. I stayed out of it. I didn't demand justice from the court, didn't ask for a share of the inheritance that started it all. I didn't need it anymore. My victory wasn't in taking what they owed me, it was in walking away free of their control. When everything settled, I packed up my apartment and drove west until the city lights faded behind. I found a small coastal town tucked between cliffs and pine trees, a place where no one knew the Grants. The air smelled of salt and rain, and the ocean sounded like a heartbeat against the shore. I rented a modest place above a cafe and took on consulting work for local businesses. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet, honest money. Some nights, I'd stand on the beach watching the horizon fade into dusk, the sky bruised with purple and gold. For the first time in years, I could breathe without waiting for the next argument, the next lie, the next wound disguised as love. People in town asked where I came from. I always gave the same simple answer: far away. It was enough. I didn't check on Ryan again. I didn't need to know what became of him or the empire he tried to steal. The silence between us was its own ending. Peace didn't arrive with celebration. It came quietly, in the rhythm of waves, in mornings without dread, in work that didn't drain my soul. I hadn't won by hurting them. I'd won by surviving them. For the first time, my life belonged to me alone. Months passed quietly, the seasons shifting without much notice. The ocean became my only constant rhythm, waves coming and going, steady and untiring. I'd built a simple life in the little coastal town, my days filled with work, long walks, and the soft comfort of solitude. I didn't talk about my family. It was easier to let the past stay buried beneath the sound of the tide. One early morning, sunlight spilling through the window, my phone buzzed on the table. I wasn't expecting any messages. When I picked it up and saw the name, I froze. Mom. I hadn't heard from her since that night. For a second, I considered ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. The message was short: "I'm sorry. You were right. Can we start over?" The words stared back at me, so simple and heavy all at once. I felt a dull ache in my chest, an echo of everything that used to hurt. I read it again and again, as if more meaning might appear if I just looked long enough. I thought of the woman who raised me, the one who'd once brushed my hair in the mornings before school, the one who taught me how to bake, who used to hum while cleaning the kitchen. Then I remembered the woman who chose silence, who believed my brother's lies, who had looked at me like I was a stranger. Both versions of her lived in that message. My hands didn't shake this time. I didn't feel anger or joy, just a strange stillness. I knew what she wanted, a chance to rewrite the past, to smooth it over without facing what it cost. But I had nothing left to give her. The part of me that had begged for her love was gone. Outside, the sky was pale blue, the kind that promised a quiet day. The waves were calm, brushing the shore like a whisper. I looked at the message one last time, my thumb hovering over the screen. Then slowly I deleted it. No reply, no hesitation. For a moment, the room felt incredibly still. I set the phone down, turned it off, and walked outside. The cool air touched my face, the sea breeze carrying the faint scent of salt and pine. I breathed deeply, letting it fill every corner of me. There was no dramatic ending, no music, no closure wrapped in forgiveness. Just the steady pulse of the world moving forward. The past didn't disappear. It simply lost its hold. As I walked toward the beach, the morning light stretched across the sand, warm and endless. I didn't look back at the phone. Whatever she wanted to say now didn't matter anymore. The story between us was finished. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for love or apology. I was finally free. Hey besties, thanks for staying with me till the end of this wild story. Imagine your parents giving everything to your brother, then your own mom texting, "It's over between us." Brutal, right? But sometimes losing family means finding your peace. If this story hit you hard, Make sure to like, share, drop a comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time. Bye.